Recording in progress.
I normally don't do it that loud, but anyway, thank you, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular City Commission meeting for Wednesday, October the 5th. We're here in the Commission Chambers at 1234 Lynn Avenue. And Mr. Wiley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Adam Morrow. I see him muted on
That's
Zoom.
okay, I could read lips. He said aye. He said he's here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. Would everyone please stand while we do the flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We have a number of ceremonies and proclamations, but I do want to make one thing. So the people that are here for item number 4, we had a little confusion last time we met. So this item is for items that are not on the City Commission agenda. If you have something that's already on the City Commission agenda, it does not come under this item number 4. It would come under whatever the item is for that particular topic. So if you have something that is not on the City Commission agenda, this would be the wonderful place on item number 4 for you to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. But if it's on the agenda, I would ask you to wait for that particular agenda item. And I will try to say that from here on, just so that we're all on the same page. So, gentlemen, as you're aware, upon my swearing in last time, we were here the 21st, I have vacated the position that I held with the Commission of Commission President. And I am wondering if we would like to nominate one of our members to fill in that position till the end of this year. So don't all jump up at once.
Well, I think we should.
Yes, I agree.
I will nominate or suggest Adam Morrow for Commission President.
Am I allowed to second anything? I would like to second that.
Historically, we have allowed the mayor to second items.
Okay, well, I will second that. Is there any discussion with regard to that? Commissioner Merrill, if you are so chosen to be the commission president serving the remainder of my term till the end of 2022, are you ready, willing, and able to take that responsibility? And we will swear you in next time, but are you willing to take that nomination?
I would gladly do so.
All right, so I think we have an approval from the nominee, and let's take a vote on that, please. Let's do the roll call.
Are we? Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Abstain.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Sure. Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Are we not able to swear him in over?
He wants to do it in person. I mean, the judge is here, we could do it now, and then we could do it maybe again in person. Is that okay with you? You're freezing up or something.
Make a decision.
I would prefer in person.
He said he would prefer in person.
Thank you, Judge. I'm sorry we didn't know this earlier.
Okay. Yep, okay, so we will add that to the top of the pops for our next agenda. Thank you, Judge Lindgren. Yeah. Okay, so next item 3B is the appointment of Will Ilcisin to the CIC as the McLoughlin Neighborhood Association representative. And I've reviewed the minutes of the McLoughlin neighborhood meeting, and they held this a couple of weeks ago and voted Will in as the representative. And I would like to make that appointment subject to your concurrence. He's nodding?
Yes,
Yes.
certainly.
Okay, so do I wave a wand or I just go make it so, or?
We understand.
You understand, okay. Using the metaphor from Captain Jean-Luc Picard, there you go. All right. Next on the agenda is the appointment of two members, to be members of the Parks Recreation Advisory Committee. That's PRAC, and I have their names somewhere. I know one of them is Emily, and let me get my agenda item here. It says Mr. Reed did such a nice report here. So, Mr. Reed, did you want to say anything further about this particular item, or I can just go for it? Okay, so anyway, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee is recommending to myself and the City Commission that we appoint Emily Lisberg and Tim, is it Lanehart? Did I get that correct? To the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee to fill two vacancies. I did have the opportunity to review the interviews that were conducted on September the 22nd, where the committee recommended recommended to us to appoint both of these people. And I think that that is a reasonable recommendation, and I would like your concurrence again to do that.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow? Okay.
And one point of clarification, there are two different terms.
Yes.
One ends earlier and one ends later.
Okay, so
Which
do we
one?
know which one is, so we get to decide which one is which? Okay, okay, so the first term is December till the end of this year, and then the second term is to December 31st, 2023. So this is to replace the late Karen Morey and Sean Dashler. So I would recommend we appoint Tim to the term ending in 2022, and then he can reapply for that, and Emily to the term ending December 31st, 2023.
Thank you.
All right, so they are now officially appointed. Should we take a vote on that? No? Okay, so we have concurrence from the commission. All right. Boy, we're just ripping right through these. All right. And we have, perfect. All right, so next it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to our Ruth McBride Powers Preservation Award. Unfortunately, we were not able to do this because we were closed down for COVID. So Kari, could you come up, please?
Where do you want me, Denise?
I'll come to you. How about that?
Wherever you would like me.
I'll just move this. Move this.
Yes.
Yes.
Kari. I don't, why don't the mic? Can everybody hear me?
Keep only the mic.
I'll be able to.
Go to the mic. All right. Anyway, so this is a uniquely amazing award. As many of you know, the city every year recognizes either a citizen for the Ruth McBride Powers Award for their preservation citizenship, and we also recognize a property owner who has done an extraordinary job on restoring and repairing their home. And it's my pleasure to present the Ruth McBride Powers Memorial Award Preservation Month 2020 to Kari Freeman. She has done extraordinary work on the C.G. Huntley House, the window repair, the siding repair, and the repainting. And it's great because not only is this an amazing house, but Kari happens to be my neighbor. And there's a couple of my neighbors in the audience. This is a house that is very significant, and for any of you who've ever seen the reruns of Route 66, this house is prominently featured in there. The two guys are going up the steps because it's being used as a boarding house. But anyway, Kari, on behalf of the city of Oregon City and a grateful citizenry, we'd like to present you with your award. And I'm sorry that it's late, but we couldn't do anything about COVID.
I did a lot more after the windows.
Yes.
Oh,
So anyway, so thank you.
Thank you.
Anything?
No, just I'm honored and
Okay,
humbled.
good. Well, thank you. It's well-deserved, and I know that the community is delighted that this house continues to play a significant role in our preservation program and in the vitality of the McLoughlin neighborhood and in the vitality of the city of Oregon City. So thank you so much for your work. It is much appreciated.
17 years.
Yes, I know. For your patience.
and everybody thought it was all falling apart, and no one's doing anything.
I'll
For those of us that don't know, house is a never-ending labor of love.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had to make that.
It's always great when our historic landmarks get restored and repaired and get them back to looking pretty amazing. And I know that some of the prior residents that have lived in that house are probably very glad that it continues to be the beautiful home that it is. All right, item 9E. It is my pleasure to read a proclamation. It is for Indigenous Peoples Day, and we have the revised version here. I didn't bring the updated version, but we have it here. So if I may, whereas the City of Oregon City recognizes that the Indigenous people of the lands that would later become known as the Americas have occupied these lands since time immemorial. And whereas the city recognizes the fact that Oregon City is built upon the homelands, villages, and sacred sites of the Indigenous peoples of this region, without whom the building of this city would not have been possible. And whereas the city recognizes the value and many contributions made to our community through Indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, spirituality, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep cultural connection that substantially shaped the character of Oregon City. And whereas Oregon City has a responsibility to oppose the systematic racism towards Indigenous people in the United States, which perpetuates high rates of poverty and income inequality, exacerbates disproportionate health, education, and social stability. And whereas the City of Oregon City promotes the closing of the gap for Indigenous people through practices and policies that reflect the experiences of Indigenous peoples, ensuring greater access and opportunity, and honoring our nation's Indigenous history and contributions. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas, and whereas the United States endorsed the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, called the Declaration, on December 16th, 2010, and the Declaration recognizes that Indigenous people have suffered from historic injustices as a result of inter-ally their civilizations and dispossession of their lands, territories, and resources. And whereas Article 15 of the Declaration recognizes the rights of Indigenous people to the dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, aspirations, which shall appropriately reflected in education and public information, and places an obligation on states to take effective measures in consultation and cooperation. Let's see, is there more than, yep, that's just the paper. With the Indigenous peoples concerned to combat prejudice and eliminate discrimination and promote tolerance, understanding, and good relations among Indigenous people and other segments of society. And now, therefore, I, Denise C. McGriff, Mayor of the City of Oregon City, do proclaim October 10th, 2022 as Indigenous People Day, and that the City of Oregon City shall continue its efforts to promote the prosperity and well-being of the Indigenous community in Oregon City and throughout the state of Oregon, and that Indigenous People Day shall be used to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous people on this land and to celebrate the thriving culture and value that Indigenous people bring to and add to our city. And that the City of Oregon City encourages other businesses, organizations, and public institutions to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. In witness thereof, I will set my hand on this 5th day of October, 2022. So I will sign that later. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for that. So now let's move on to item number 4, and we have a number of people, so I'm going to call you up 2 at a time. So when you come up, please give us your name and your city of residence, and tell us what you would like to talk with us about, and he's going to move that. So Sandra and Linda. And you can both sit on the same side, you can sit on opposite sides, whatever, and just speak right into the mic.
Hello, my name is Sandra Taves. I am running to be a commissioner for Oregon City. I have raised my hand, paid my fees, and am actively campaigning for a position. Your current plan is to fill the empty seat left by Mayor McGriff and to fill it on November 2nd. You are planning to do this by choosing a person who fills out a posted application online, who pays no fees, who does no campaigning, and who just needs the vote of 3 people. As per the gentleman who was sitting over here on December 27th, I'm sorry, forgive me, I do not know who it was, he said, and I can quote, "There are no bylaws for replacing a city commissioner. You can do what you want." I am requesting that you remove the application, postpone the appointment of that position for 6 days. The person receiving the 3rd highest number of votes should be given the empty seat on November 8th, 2022. At that special session on May 27th, many of you stated that you really don't have time to review resumes or interview applications or to make this selection. This would give you more time for your other activities should you choose this course of action. Mayor McGriff, you are on the ballot November 8th. Are you a leader who listens to the citizens of Oregon City? Commissioner Smith, you also are on the ballot on November 8th. Are you a leader who listens to the citizens of Oregon City? Commissioner Marl, you also are on the ballot for November 8th. Are you a leader who listens to the citizens of Oregon City? Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Neese. I just recently relocated to Oregon City. I live at 14365 Emily Place. And I was really surprised. And
Just set it back, just set it back just a tiny bit, because
Is that okay?
we're getting reverb here.
All right, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As I said, I've just located here to Oregon City, and I've been surprised at the fact that I've just learned that you have no bylaws for your city commissioners at all, that you don't follow, and you can, am I incorrect on that, that there are no bylaws for you to follow?
I think
Or on replacing your commissioners? Anyway, with the 3 of you coming up for re-election, what kind of a lead are you going to present to the community on when you have people who come forward and want to be on the commission, and you just approve who you feel that you want without talking to the citizens of Oregon City, giving them an opportunity to ask questions and to listen to the people and take their vote, not your vote. Thank you.
Angela and Sue. Is this along the same lines?
Yes. My name is Angela Kelly, and I'm a citizen of Oregon City. I wanted to come and voice my concerns about the plan for our city commissioners to appoint a replacement for the vacant seat on November 2nd. Seeing as there are no bylaws for replacing a city commissioner per the city recorder in that special session on September 27th, I ask that you err on the side of letting Oregon City residents have a say in this matter, rather than having the decision be made by 3 people. We have 4 candidates in addition to our 2 current city commissioners running who have paid fees and signed up to have their name on the ballot for November 8th. I ask that you wait 6 days past your planned date of appointment until the election, where Oregon City will be voting for their city commissioners. Let the candidate who receives the third highest amount of votes be elected. We got to vote for our mayor when that position was vacated. Why should we also not have a say in filling the vacated city commissioner seat? As Lincoln stated in the Gettysburg Address, and many others have said over the course of our country's history, our government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Let the people have a voice. Oregon City is watching the decision that you will make. Know that we will remember your decision when you're up for re-election and when you run for other positions in the future, should you decide to have 3 people make this decision rather than letting the people of Oregon City be heard. Thank you.
I just wanted to know that we have 4 commissioners, so there are not 3 people making any decision. There are 4
Okay,
commissioners.
So 4 people instead of all the residents of Oregon City. I stand corrected. Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to correct to make sure you knew that we have 4 seated commissioners.
Yes, instead of all the residents of Oregon City.
Hi, my name is Sue Leslie. Thank you for hearing me, Mayor and Commissioners. I am a resident of Oregon City, and I have been a resident for over 30 years. And so I have some tenure in this city, so I'm very interested in what happens. So with that being said, I know I have 3 minutes, and I want to get to the meat of the subject, which is basically becoming an echo chamber. I hope that you will take it seriously, that we are taking it seriously, that we want the opportunity to have the citizens vote. While I appreciate your position and your professionalism, I think it's the city's responsibility to hear the constituents. And of course, I am a constituent, and so therefore, whatever your decision is on this will be how I vote. And so I think there's a number of people that are watching what's going to happen in this particular situation, and I would appreciate you taking the time to really consider this. And that pretty much sums it up, so I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question
Yes.
to our attorney. When in the past has the city commission not followed through, which is normal process, which is to appoint a city commissioner as we have done and as we plan to do?
I was going to say the charter lays out how, when there's a vacancy in office, and in
Yes.
this type of case, it is how it's filled. Section 32 of the charter, which is essentially the city's constitution, vacant elected offices in the city shall be filled by appointment. A majority vote of the commission shall be required to validate the appointment. So it is, your responsibility to do that. When, I don't know if it's Jacob or somebody else said there's no bylaws, what that meant is there is no set procedure. Historically, you have.
No procedure on how to appoint, but our charter says we appoint.
The commission has a sole
Yes.
authority to appoint whoever that is.
Right.
How you go about doing it is, within your discretion as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Morrow, you have anything to add?
I appreciate the comments, and I would be willing to defer I think it was the requested 6 days or whatever, our next meeting after the election, with keeping in mind that in the end, it still is a commission decision, but I would be willing to postpone until after the election when it's such a short amount of time. I think the concern that was being brought up by us at that special meeting was that we wanted to get this built as soon as possible, because having just spent a summer as a 3-person commission and now finally being back to a 4-person commission, we are anxious to be a 5-person commission once again.
I hope everybody was able to hear that. I heard most of it. So did everybody just not, do not speak out loud, but did everybody understand what the city attorney basically stated? The charter, which is what we are governed by, bylaws are, we don't specifically have them. We have a charter. The charter specifically states, as City Attorney Bill Kabizman stated, what our obligation is under the charter. That is the law. That is our law. So
even if we extend it beyond the the date of the election, we're still making the decision.
Still have to make the decision, according to.
So I don't mind moving it to beyond the date, but the rest of the commission clearly had an interest in pushing this forward and doing it fast, and Commissioner Morrow, you were one of them that said do it the fastest we can. So now to see you what's now saying 6 days later, I don't mind if it's 6 days or say later after the election. I don't mind if it's a month from now, but it's still going to be this commission that makes the appointment.
Okay, well, we will take that under advisement and save that for later. So we have a number of items on our consent agenda, items A through J. Is there anything that anyone wants to pull off the agenda, or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion, please.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as submitted. All those, Mr. Wiley, I almost just usurped your responsibility there, so please call the roll.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
I did want to mention there was another public comment.
Oh, I'm
before we
sorry.
move on.
I don't have any more slips. Is there another slip? I should have it. I do not have it. I checked everybody. Right. Oh. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Colleen? Is this going to be the same thing?
Yes.
Okay, could you just say that you agree? I mean, please come up. Please come up and state your name and city of residence for the record, and then we would be very happy to hear what you have to say. Thank you. So, we appreciate it.
I'm a bit confused. My name and say
Yes,
what I
just
want to
name and city. You don't have to give us your whole address, just the name and
Okay,
city of
Colleen
residence.
Hamilton, Oregon City resident. There's been a lot of noise, anger, and in some cases, downright hostility with boards, commissioners, and councils lately. In most cases, I hear those complaints are because the citizens feel they are not being heard. My understanding is the Oregon City Commissioners are planning on selecting one replacement commissioner just days before we vote for the other two on November 8th. Since this is at your discretion, would it be possible for you to take the third largest vote and implement that person? Why would you want to ramrod someone into office that when your constituents are voting just days later for the other two positions, and you can add the third right in? We will know the number of votes that these candidates receive. Think about it. Appointing someone other than having your constituents vote for that person sounds like ramrodding to me. I looked up the definition of ramrod, and it says ramming down the throat of a muzzle, a firearm. That does not sound like something we want our commission involved in. Do you really want to be the kind of city commission that one of your first group decisions, the new group, would be to force something through when many, many concerned citizens do not want you to do that? I advise you to think again before you make the kind of decision that leaves your constituents out of the process. Need I say it again? Why would you upset your constituents with an unnecessary appointed rather than elected third position in the vote on November 8th? Thank you.
I'd like to comment.
Thank you very much.
So I appreciate these comments, I really do, but this is, and I wouldn't have minded waiting till after the election, and I think it's a valid point to say that if you thought that having this appointment before the election is an issue, then wait till after the election and have the new commission appointed. That's the charter. The charter tells us that we, as a commission, appoint. So we're following the charter. We're not ramrodding. Following the charter is a very serious thing in a city, and we do that, and we take it very seriously. So, knowing that, if If the issue is truly that you think we're ramrodding, then why not, if we have to make an option here, make the appointment, because you're saying the people speak. Well, the people speak in this election. So the people speak in this election, and if you are claiming then that you want that commission to make the appointment, I get that, and that makes sense. But it will be the commission, whether it's before or after the election, that makes the appointment, not the citizens. This is what the charter states us to do. If it was a vacancy, that's how we do it. If it's an election, that's a totally different thing. But you're electing people for this upcoming commission, and if that's your argument to have that commission make the appointment, I get that, and that makes sense to me. But if you also then want to support a commission that doesn't follow the charter, that's a big step. I think the citizens want us to follow the charter. If not, then we have to change the charter.
And all those arguments don't recognize that any candidate could apply for the 2-year position.
Absolutely.
In fact, they can have 2 chances to serve on this commission. And the fact that they're running for election doesn't mean you can't apply for the 2-year position. Secondly, we're not a ranked choice voting community. It doesn't matter. If you come in third, you don't get the third place position. You don't. Why would you have us select a third place finisher when we may get a highly qualified individual who really only wants to commit to 2 years, and this is their opportunity? So I heard your argument, and I stay by my original decision. I know the amount of work that happens up here, how much reading goes into it, how many site visits, how many meetings outside of these you attend. I want to get as close to full staff as possible. Whether you agree or disagree, that's your prerogative. I've got 5 people here who are offended by it. That doesn't necessarily say that's the voice of the community. That says that's the voice of these people who want to come forward. So I stick by my conviction of fill the position and move on.
Mayor, can you turn your mic on, please?
Yep. All right. Okay, we do not have any public hearings tonight. Is that correct, Mr. Conkle, under number 8?
Correct.
Correct. All right, so let's move on to number 9. We have 9A. We have a preliminary urban growth boundary exchange options presentation. I think Ted Reed is here, Councilor Christine Lewis, and I apologize. I saw your name on the impact list, but I can't remember it, but you can introduce yourself when you come up. So, Ted, you're just memorable that I just kept your name in my head. Anyway, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about this interesting and unique topic.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and good to call you Mayor, finally. Again, my name is Christine Lewis, and I have the opportunity to serve District 2 on Metro Council, which includes much of Oregon City. And I'm here tonight just to introduce our staff who will more ably cover this agenda item. But in late 2021, the city of Tigard submitted a proposal for a mid-cycle review process of the urban growth boundary. This is our first mid-cycle review after much negotiation at the state level in order to give us more opportunities and flexibility within our statewide land use parameters. Tigard's proposal is to add about 500 acres to facilitate more housing development, and they have a particular focus on middle housing that includes duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, cottage clusters, and some of the more affordable housing options. In March of 22, earlier this year, our COO, Marisa Madrigal at Metro, shared her recommendations with our council that we add River Terrace 2.0 as proposed by the city of Tigard. However, we would be contemplating this through a UGB exchange process instead of the mid-cycle. For a number of factors that we'll go into on the technical side, we are not eligible right now to bring in through the mid-cycle process because of the factors set in state statute. However, we see a lot of opportunity with what the city of Tigard has proposed, and the UGB exchange process is always available to us. It's different than a mid-cycle UGB expansion. But as you'll hear, this approach is consistent with our focus on city readiness and growth management decisions.
This is a good opportunity. We know we have enough land, and we're just not using it in the most effective way. But when we add land to the UGB, the intention is that it produces either housing or jobs, and this proposal from Tigard would do just that. However, in order to grow the housing opportunities in Tigard, we would need to take an exchange approach that would be a swap with other housing lands that have not been used for housing. This evening, I'm here with our planning director, Andy Shaw, and our principal regional planner, Ted Reed, and I'll turn it over to them for more details.
Thank you, Councilor Lewis. I was going to say, maybe you could just keep going. You're doing a fantastic job of presenting a lot of what we wanted to say. So we have received this request from Tigard. Our COO made a recommendation last winter. We've had a couple engagements with MPAC, the Metropolitan Planning Advisory Committee, and we've been getting out to city councils, county commissions, and local neighborhood associations, others, just talking about what we're trying to accomplish here. So next slide. As Councilor Lewis noted, the focus of our urban growth work has really shifted over time from sort of analytical analysis of where land could come in to readiness. What cities have done the planning, have identified the infrastructure finance, have had the local community discussion about growth, and are ready to accommodate housing. So 2018 decision was really focused on cities that could bring good plans to Metro for consideration of expansion of the UGB. This is a map of past UGB expansions, and you see the large expansion of Damascus on the east side of the region, some areas that we're considering for potential removal from the UGB are in the Damascus area, some are in Oregon City, some are on the west side. Ted will go through in a minute some of the analysis that we've done, but we've learned a lot from past UGB expansions and the experiences of what happened after those expansions. Places that struggled to conduct the planning because they hadn't done planning before the expansion, places that struggled to keep a city in place. In an instance of Damascus, where the city actually disincorporated after many efforts to establish plans. Places where communities didn't understand the challenges of expanding, annexing into land, identifying the infrastructure finance to support that development. So we shifted to, we've done a number of things over time. We shifted to adding this mid-cycle process. We have shifted the focus to what cities are ready. Metro funds planning for those cities ahead of time so they can bring well-planned proposals to the region to understand what kind of housing could be put in place, understand the costs of infrastructure, understand the transportation and other implications. We also went through a lengthy process of establishing urban and rural reserves, identifying the places in the future where the region could consider growing into, and the places that would be off limits for 50 years and protected from development. So all those were part of this increasing focus on readiness. Where are we ready to grow? Where are the places that we plan to grow? With that, we're going to just talk a little bit about the Tigard proposal and the process we've gone through to look at what areas could be potential candidates for removal so that we could add land into the Tigard area. And I'll give you the magic wand.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. So we did receive a proposal from the city of Tigard last year for this expansion called the River Terrace 2.0 area. It is, as Andy described, in an urban reserve, so an area that's suitable for long-term urbanization. Those are the candidates we look to when expanding the urban growth boundary. The city of Tigard has been a leader in middle housing, so townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, and we see that in their plan that they presented to Metro. It has a lot of housing options built into that concept plan. They're planning for something on the order of 3,500 to, I believe, 4,000 housing units that our region desperately needs in that concept plan. And as Andy described, we are approaching this through an exchange process. This is a process that is enabled under state law that has been used elsewhere in the state, but never in our region. And essentially the law has the Metro Council hold the overall size of the urban growth boundary the same, but shifting where that boundary is. So You see in the red circle there, that's the River Terrace 2.0 Urban Reserve Area that the City of Tigard has proposed for addition to the urban growth boundary. It's about 500 total acres. The law has us maintain the same number of buildable acres in the urban growth boundary, so that's after we account for environmental constraints like steep slopes, for instance. So 350 buildable acres in that River Terrace 2.0 area, that's essentially what we're looking for in terms of an exchange area. And to go about this analysis of potential exchange areas, we started with some mapping and then followed that up with some fact checking. So I wanted to go quickly through that to show you how we arrived at some options. First, we established a 1 mile buffer inside the urban growth boundary because we can't create islands inside the urban growth boundary that are not part of the urban growth boundary. So it needs to be on the edge. We then looked for unincorporated areas, so areas that have not been annexed to cities as potential candidates. And then finally, we looked within those unincorporated areas for areas with buildable land that presented development opportunities that hadn't been realized over the years. And what we ended up with was a number of exchange options. You'll see here on the map that some of the areas are circled in green. Through consultation with local jurisdictions about the planning and development status of those areas, those have been removed from further consideration for the exchange. You see also the areas in blue, and I should note this map is a work in progress, so it's very much changing as we learn more. The areas in blue are areas that after consulting with local jurisdictions and service providers, they remained on the table for further discussion. And next steps, I believe Andy was going to cover this.
Oh,
and this
great.
is our final slide.
So we have been engaging in conversations with our technical advisory committee, MTAC, as well as MPAC over time. Just had the last discussion last week at MPAC. We will come out with a COO proposal, a recommendation, and that will contain different scenarios for how to approach the concept of some land being removed in order to consider the addition of Tigard. And then that will open up a public comment period. We're going to take that proposal back to both our council as well as MPAC for further review and consideration. In this process, we've been developing a list of considerations. What are the kinds of things we look at when considering what makes an area suitable for removal? So as Ted noted, it's not been annexed to a city. It doesn't have the urban level of zoning. There aren't cities or even a county considering any form of development. No one's looking at doing planning. All those considerations. How long has it been in? Is it hard to serve with infrastructure? Why was it added to the urban growth boundary? Were there specific reasons that were narrow as compared to general employment or housing? Those are the kinds of considerations that we've been developing and getting advice from MPAC over time. And then we will ask MPAC later this fall to consider endorsing the general COO recommendation and ask our council to narrow that from a couple scenarios or a few scenarios down to specific lots that would be proposed for removal. And then we will, I believe we're scheduling that council decision for early January 2023. So that's the general process ahead. And we're out now. During that public comment period, we're also very happy to engage in further conversation. So thank you for having us out tonight. I think with that, we're moving on to any questions or discussion you may have.
No, I'll jump in. So 6 years ago, when I ran for office, I studied the South End concept plan, which is one that's under consideration for a land swap. And I'm familiar with the difficulties of developing that. Topographical, pumping stations needed, difficulty in building. So to me, it is a candidate for a land swap. I'm curious. The goal, of course, is to positively impact not only housing, but affordable housing to meet state plans. And this would seem to help with that because it makes buildable land available, and it makes it more affordable land, because if you have to develop the kind of infrastructure, for example, that South End or Park Place would require, those are costs that have to be passed along to the final consumer, which drives the cost of the housing up. So the Tigard property is obviously more attractive from that perspective. Here's my question. If Oregon City participates in this, in the furtherance of these goals, which are good and admirable, what kind of credit, what's the impact on Oregon City and their ability to meet housing goals and affordable housing goals? And do we get any credit as a participant to this in facilitating the ability to provide the housing? We are making a swap to enable a more affordable housing. What recognition do we get?
Sorry, we were just conferring on questions around sort of housing production strategies and other goals the state sets out. I mean, right now, we're not aware, all of these candidate areas aren't viewed as places that are likely to produce housing in the next 20 years. So the removal of that land shouldn't impact any local 20-year plan for what housing might exist on those properties. I don't know if Ted has anything to add there.
Yeah, Commissioner, your question is a good one. I don't know that we can offer a reward per se, but I think that this speaks to your willingness to be part of our larger region and look out for the interests of the region as a whole, and we appreciate that.
I think what Commissioner O'Donnell is saying, that we'd like something in writing that if we agree to this, that there aren't going to be any reprisals later on, and we would definitely want that.
That's correct.
It's reward, I think, is a nicer way of saying it.
Well,
no, I agree.
You know, the state imposes these edicts and without consideration on the impact on the local community. And I don't want 5 years from now or 10 or 20, this like Oregon City's not meeting their housing goals because they don't have buildable land. Well, guess what? We swapped our land to help provide it in a more timely manner. So I think there should be something in writing that says recognition for that and in the future, as you said, Mayor.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would totally agree. And just for the record, I do represent the city on the replacing former Mayor Rachel Lyle Smith on the Metropolitan Policy Advisory Committee. And I will tell you, this is about as wonky in planning as you can get. I mean, you would say that it might be up my alley, but even I find this a little complicated. So, Andy, you mentioned that this has been used elsewhere in the state. So I don't think I heard that at the impact meeting that this has been done before. I mean, I know it has not been done in our region because not everybody has a metro like we do.
Correct. So only in Oregon, only the metro region controls the regional urban growth boundary. So as we understand it, there are a few jurisdictions in the state that have made a swap just in their city. So they've taken something out on the one side and added something on the other side. So
any specific city?
I believe Sutherland is one example. Okay. There are others that are not coming to mind at the moment.
That's okay, just as long as we have one.
Was that between cities or within a city?
Within one city, and I think, that's a different dynamic as you all know.
Slightly different, because
this raises the challenge of doing this regionally, and thus the conversation trying to get out to talk to lots of cities and bring this to MPAC and have a robust conversation about what the potential impacts and repercussions are.
I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah,
I just want something in writing that recognizes what we did. For a future commission that sits here in 10 years and said, you need to do this.
Why didn't we do that?
Well, we can't because.
Yeah. Well, no, I was a member along with several citizens on the South End Concept Plan, and I recall our Public Works Director and our consultants basically talking about what I would call severe development challenges of that area to provide services there. I mean, people have asked me in the community when I was on the Planning Commission, how likely is it that we're going to get services? And I said, how likely is it that you're going to help pay for this? And that's not really the answer they wanted to hear. I said, this is not going to be totally development driven. There's going to have to be some contribution by the owners, but I said, it's going to be extremely expensive. And now with, inflation and everything else, it's even more expensive. So I would say that, yes, that area should still be under consideration. The other area that I would like to see us take into consideration is the area south of Redland Road. That has major, severe development constraints, not only just how do you get there, which is the other thing, and you've got steep slopes, you've got all sorts of other things, and that includes the, not the road is just Holly Lane area. That is geologically challenged is what I will call it. To be clear, it's kind of reminds me of South End Road. It's been moving for years and it's still moving. And I think that trying to do something there is, let's not mess with the geology and start, where we're going to have another Newell Creek Canyon situation on our hands. So I will go ahead and ask the planning wonky question that I asked at Impact, and it has to do with compact urban development and growth. And, this is something that has been sort of a tenet in my planning career over the several years that I've worked in planning. So I have been in and around Tigard as of late, and I know that they have a lot of vacant and underutilized land. They have underutilized land that has very outdated small mini shopping centers, or whatever you want to call them, mall type areas. And so the question I asked at Impact is that, has Tigard shown that it cannot accommodate this needed housing within its current boundaries on vacant or underutilized lands that already exist without going through a UGB expansion? Because to me, the way that planning is supposed to work, we're supposed to take the stuff that we've already got, look at how we can redevelop it for something that might be more productive. I don't want to use the term highest and best use because I don't like that term, because I don't think it accurately gets it. But, to be honest with you, over the years, I have thought, how could we help redevelop part of the Oregon City Shopping Center? And I'm not saying we are, but if you look at it, there's a lot of area and that could be utilized for something else. I mean, it's on a bus line, it's close to other shopping, and I kept thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could put some housing on that site, in addition to the parking lots that are already there. It's something we talked about when I first started working for Oregon City. So to me, that is a major fundamental question. Because to me, the urban growth boundary is pretty sacred, and you don't want to be messing around with it unless you absolutely have to. And so my other comment was at Impact, I said, okay, so we do this swap. Is this opening, is this putting the camel's nose in the tent for other people, jurisdictions to say, how about if I do a land swap over? I mean, it's not something we want to do lightly, so I understand that. But as a planner, I always think about the unintended consequences of actions of things that when we're doing planning, because for some reason they are usually there. And I know that you guys have done a lot of work on this, and you have looked at this every which way but loose. But those are sort of the questions that came to my mind when I first looked at it about a month and a half ago. So I'm not saying that you need to answer those today, but those are things that I think the other jurisdictions need to know. And, has Tigard really done the heavy lifting? And I have no skin in this game, but it's just looking at the region as a whole, which is what we do at Impact to try to figure out how to balance everything. So that would be, those are my two suggestions for us to have further conversation about the South End area and then the area south of Redland Road.
I have one other question.
Please.
Is there any legal exposure for anyone who may have bought land within the urban growth boundary with the intent to hopefully divide it into R8, R10, and now
city limits first?
And now they would not be able to do that because we've taken it out of the urban growth boundary? Do they have any, is there a legal matter there?
So as the mayor noted, we have looked at this every which way but loose, and including legal questions. We don't believe there is any legal exposure there because the zoning in all these areas will not change from being in the UGB to not being in UGB. It is not being in the UGB would be, another hurdle to get through.
I just want to be comfortable with it.
Yep. Good question. I mean, and we'd love to, if you want to hear any thoughts about your questions, Mayor, we'd be happy to do that now if that's of interest to you, but.
I don't know if it's of interest to the other commissioners.
I don't mind.
I don't mind. You live it and breathe it. You've got the background. We don't.
Yep. Commissioner Morrow, do you have a question or two?
So, thank you, Mayor. My question was pretty much already covered by Commissioner O'Donnell. I'll just reiterate my concern that if, well, first of all, that I would be open to this, and I think this is a really intriguing idea. But I would just want assurance that, in light of a lot of the more recent mandates and regulations coming from the state, I mean, we just recently passed our housing needs analysis, and I realize this is a part of our city that isn't necessarily ripe for development already. I just would want to make sure that it wouldn't come to bite us in the future, but it doesn't sound like that is the case, and so, but I do share those concerns with Commissioner O'Donnell.
Commissioner O'Donnell, just a quick second, just a quick correction. So none of these areas are currently within the city limits. They are still out in the county. And I think what Andy was saying, that they would retain their current zoning because it wouldn't change at all. So the only way anybody would be able to develop at a density that is city level is that they would have to annex, and then we would have to be able to figure out how to provide those services, which we don't have the ability. I do know that I had a meeting today with Chair Smith, and I can tell you that item number, I think it's the one that involves the Damascus area, it might be number 9. Is that one, or is it?
East of 242nd,
Yeah,
Mayor, yes.
yeah. I would say that there was less than thrilling response about that, so I'm just passing that on because you already know, she's probably already told you, but somehow or another it came up in our conversation, and I just kind of went, well, we are going to be talking about it tonight, and we're going to be, we'll consider 2 areas. And she said, well, we're not real thrilled about it. I said, okay, I'll make that comment at tonight's meeting.
We had the opportunity to present to the full commission and heard some concerns and some support. Yes. We also had the opportunity to meet with some members of the Damascus CPO, and 2 person with 1 exception, residents there were asking to be removed from the UGB. So we're trying to have as many discussions as we can and get a good sense of where people stand, landowners, jurisdictions, et cetera.
I know there's a number of landowners in that area who are closer to Happy Valley who are already in process of doing that. But there are others that do not. They didn't want to be in Damascus to begin with, is my understanding, and they would just as soon be out. So is this something that you're asking us to take any action on tonight, or we have some further opportunity to have a discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is just informational, and I look forward to following up both with you and Commissioner O'Donnell, particularly on how we can, if we do move forward, give you the assurances. Obviously, as Commissioner Marl noted, housing needs analysis factors are set at the state statute level. Anything we can do to advocate to make sure that any future analysis or just regional study recognizes a role that a city like yours might play in producing over 4,000 units for the region. Additionally, you've got a voice at MPAC directly, which I will take the MPAC recommendation very seriously when looking forward to a vote in early next year.
Great. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate your coming in and talking to us about this. This is an important regional issue, and we all have a part to play in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 9B, my second favorite agenda item of the night, besides 9C. We just love talking about WIFIA. I just love saying WIFIA. It's just a fun thing to say. So for the public, it's the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, so we don't want to use acronyms and
You're right. That's a tough
it's a mouthful
to not use because it's so lengthy if you say it all. But yeah, thank you for time on your agenda tonight, commissioners. Patty and Matt Zook are going to take the lead on this. I really just wanted to introduce the topic and then, if need be, help answer questions. So, Patty?
All right. A lot of this you heard during the work session, but for everybody's benefit, I'm going through everything. So tonight we're looking to request approval to apply for the WIFIA. I won't go into the detail there. Loan, and also authorizing expenditures of $100,000, which covers our application fee. Let's see if we can get this going. Quick overview of our presentation, overview of our capital improvement plan and how it's funded, voter approval that was granted in November, election results, our federal funding opportunities that we're taking advantage of, the proposed WIFIA project package, and then finally ending with our city commission direction. So just as a reminder for everybody, we have a master plan in place for a water system. We have $81 million of capital improvements that need to be completed. Revenues that help support that are through our water systems development charges. The city increased the water systems development charges in July 1st of 2021. The other component are water rates. The rates are set by city charter to not increase 3% annually, more than 3% annually without voter approval. So in November last year, we had two ballot measures, one that was asking to authorize the city to borrow funds, and the other one to increase our water rates. Borrowing measure did pass, the rate increase did not. So what that means for us is that we can borrow up to $38 million. We can repay debt from 20 to 30 years, and the money has to be spent for water system improvements. We have a WIFIA application. We submitted a letter of interest is what it's called for the WIFIA program. It's the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. It's a program that provides funding for project sizes of 20 million or more. The loan covers up to 49%, with 51% being matched by the borrower. And 80% of that can be federally funded. That'll be important because we are going to be using our ARPA dollars as part of our matching funds. One of the benefits of applying or using this mechanism, and Matt can talk in more details, but it provides a lot of flexibility. So some of the things that we are using is deferred payments. We don't have to make payments until 5 years after we're substantially complete. So there's flexibility in how we can pay back the loan. So we submitted our letter of interest in June of 2021. We heard back that we were selected. It's a competitive process. We're one of 4 agencies in the state of Oregon that have been invited to apply for this loan. We need to have the application in within 365 days of getting that letter, that notice. And so that is October 26, 2022. Federal funding is also available through the American Rescue Plan Act grant funds. Those are grant dollars, so we do not have to pay them back. Those have provisions in terms of having to be spent by 2026. We have $5.6 million that have been dedicated by the city for water infrastructure improvements. What we learned through this process is, again, we can use that for part of our matching funds. So when we asked the question whether or not we could proceed with actually applying for a loan, because we have to have enough money, of course, to make the debt payments, the answer was yes. And the key was leveraging our ARPA dollars for our city matching, and then prioritizing our capital improvements so we could complete. With the guidance of the City Commission, we went through our projects. We updated our cost estimates because, as you know, escalation has been a big factor. And we've also prioritized them based on focusing on making sure the improvements we're funding are benefiting our existing customers. So I have this in here just to, again, I think a lot of people are feeling the effects of inflation, and our projects are certainly no exception. Supply chain issues have created delays, as well as increased construction costs and design costs. So we did complete a study to update our estimates, so we could go in with the best prices that we know today. And then we had to right-size the project packages. So what we have is, before, when we talked to you, I think over a year ago, or less than a year ago, we had estimated $24 million worth of projects. And so now we're looking at $28 million of project improvements. What that will cover is some cybersecurity improvements with our water system. It's called our SCADA. It will be isolating our SCADA from our network system, providing a layer of cybersecurity. And then we have 5 years of our pipe rehabilitation program included in there. So that's going to be pipe replacement, upsizing pipe sizes that are old. Some of them are 2-inch in diameter. So we have some work to do there, but that's a big chunk of that. And then one of our major issues is in our upper system. That serves 70% of our area, and I have a map coming up. But we are looking to make transmission improvements, so the McLoughlin project completed part of that. This will complete the remainder portion of the transmission lines that we need to address service needs up there, as well as replace an aging pump station. So in terms of citywide benefits, the cybersecurity improvements for the SCADA obviously benefit everybody. And the pipe rehab program is also a citywide benefit. And I broke this up because I think previously Commissioner Marl had raised the question, or perhaps it was Commissioner O'Donnell, in terms of where is the money going and how is it serving our community? So the next slide is focusing in on our transmission improvements. It's the upper system, but the upper system is shown in pink, so that's the area, and that represents 70% of our customers. That's a huge area that will see a huge improvement. In that area, we have a hard time pumping enough water. I think I've talked about the Mountain View pump station, trying to pump enough water during peak season to meet the demands as well as fill the reservoirs. It's very critical. It's an ongoing problem. And right now, we only operate our pump station at a fraction of what it's actually designed to, because the pressures are too great and the pipes are too old and undersized near there. So what this will do is we will have a larger transmission main taken all the way to our Henry C. Reservoir, and I need my little, are you going to help me with my little markers? I've got projects identified up here. Let's see, will this work? Let's see here. Oh, yeah, there we go. So this, I'm going to need your help there.
Sure. Just tell me where I need to go.
Okay, let's go to the top circle there. So that's a portion of the transmission main that's going to pick up from our Mountain View pump station, and that will connect in where the McLoughlin project finished. And then heading south to the next little oval, that's another section that needs to be completed. That'll pick up again where the McLoughlin project finished, and then we'll be connecting to Myers Road. And then the third little circle, there we go. We have a little connection. This is a Band-Aid, I guess I'll say. We have a large diameter pipe connection that's intended to connect to Beaver Creek. Right now, it's waiting for development. We don't know when that's going to happen. So we've come up with this solution to help us deal with our transmission improvements or issues right now. And it's a small section that we're going to increase and put a 16-inch pipe on High School Road, I think it's called.
Avenue.
And then the fourth circle there, over, there we go. So that's near Henrici. We have an existing reservoir out there. We have an old pump station that's right off of Beaver Creek Road. It's undersized. It's running beyond its capacity. We need to replace it. We're going to replace it at Henrici at the reservoir. And we're going to right size it so it's going to be able to serve the larger area in the future. But for right now, it's going to resolve a lot of the transmission issues in that area, in addition to a new transmission main that runs parallel. That's the red line that's running down the roads to the Henrici Reservoir. So now I'm going to turn over to Matt and talk finance.
So the summary here on this slide, financial model highlights, we've built a financial model and have vetted that through the financial team that we brought up. It is a model that we will be sending to with the WIFIA application, should you approve it, that will demonstrate the city's ability to repay the debt and continue to maintain operations, and as well as utilize the ARPA funds. So some of the assumptions that went into the model, as Patty has already described, will borrow just shy of $14 million. We're anticipating the construction period to be 2024 to 2028. And then we will begin repayment anticipated at this point in our model at 5%. That may be too high, that may be a little low. I did learn today that if we were to do this, if we were to close today, it'd be 4%. So we've hedged a little bit of inflation there. Our loan payment will begin after the completion of construction. And I will say that the WIFIA terms are very generous. There is capability to delay payments, although that is not how we built the model necessarily. We built that with a more aggressive approach to repayment. And so with the effort to keep the amount of interest costs down. We also assumed a customer growth and rate increase of 3%, which is also within our existing charter. And this is just a funding overview of the different sources of funds for the projects that Patty has described. So 20% from ARPA and essentially 49% from the WIFIA loan. So that's within the 80% max of federal funds that can go into these projects. Water rates account for 11% of the project costs, and the water SDCs for 20% of the cost.
Okay, so what's next? If you authorize us to proceed with the loan and secure the application fee, we are looking to submit the application before October 26th of this month. And then over the next, this is a timeline that WIFIA provides us, so I put some dates in there. And it's a range, right? So once we apply, we're going to be working with the WIFIA team. They set up a number of meetings. They're looking at environmental things. They're looking at terms of the loan. But it takes like 3 to 6 months before we could close. And so tonight, we're asking for authorization of the city manager to issue payment in the amount of $100,000 and sign a WIFIA loan application for the water system, or authorizing the city manager to approve payment in the amount of $100,000 and sign the WIFIA loan application for water system improvements with adjustments, or direct staff to not submit the WIFIA loan. So.
All right, gentlemen, are there any questions?
I'm curious, because we've dealt with WIFIA loans at South Fork. Are they usually accompanied by a $100,000 buy-in? Is that typical?
It's a $100,000 loan fee, and that goes towards our, Matt, maybe you can explain it.
Toward WIFIA processing the loan? Is that what it is? I'm not going to take issue with it. I'm just curiosity.
I'll let Matt ask the answer.
It is a part of the application process that they mandate, and it is, there are other closing costs that are involved too, but that $100,000 will go towards wrapping up the application and the review, the underwriting process, and all the things that typically go into borrowing for a loan of this size.
And maybe I missed it. What's the source of those funds? $100,000?
It's the water funds that we have, or the ARPA. I mean, it's fungible, but it's going to be paid for by the city's resources.
From the water fund?
Yes.
We're not going to use other...
Correct.
And the improvements, and I'm not opposed to this, there's some curious questions to me.
The government charges a high loan fee, I see.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. I think they want to make sure you're serious about this.
The benefits of this project, does it extend to new service areas, or is it all about existing service areas?
It's primarily existing service areas. The exception is there's an existing pump station called the Fairway Downs Pump Station.
Yeah, that caught my eye.
Remember when we put
and we'll be replacing that. And while we're replacing it, we're going to size it so that it can serve the future Thimble Creek area. So I call it right sizing it. But we have to replace the pump station regardless.
And that's the purpose of SDCs, to compensate us for those improvements. It's an increase in capacity for a new area, not for existing. Because, I'm just kind of this detailed person when I read things like top of page 2, the majority of the current rate revenue goes to maintenance of our existing system. So what's the balance of it? Is any part of the current rate revenue go to new development?
I think that's...
Yeah, no, today, as it stands today, the rate revenue that we get does not go towards new development. That's
what I want to hear.
It's used to pay for operations, and then we have some capital, and we're using that capital that we would normally use today. We're building it into this rate model to help pay down the debt, pay for the capital, however you want to look at it. That's going to the existing customers. Anything new is where that percentage of SDC comes in, and each project's got a little different percentage, but overall that 20% applies to this program.
My approach is always who pays and who benefits. So understanding that, I've got no problem with this proposal.
Mr. Morrow, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
Yeah, it kind of got into what Commissioner O'Donnell was asking about, but I I was under the impression the last time that this was brought over regarding the $100,000 application fee, that if we were in fact successful, that the $100,000, would that count toward then our amount that we're contributing?
Did you understand that?
No.
Yeah, I understood him.
Would you restate it for me? Because would that count towards the amount that, what was
He's
read?
asking if essentially the $100,000 goes towards the remainder of the closing costs that are also part of this project. And yes, that does go towards, I think it's $250,000 altogether. And the reason they have that up front is, you know, if they want to know that we have skin in the game in this deal. So it's a non-refundable $100,000. And then that does go towards the whole cost of the borrowing. And as we looked at this borrowing, this is, you know, typically when you go out to the market, you spend 2 to 4% in closing costs and loan issuance costs to do that. And this is all well within the scope of that acceptable range.
I asked about the source of the funding because I thought maybe we were going to leverage ARPA funds toward this.
Well, whether you allocate ARPA or Water SD, I mean, the funding overview on the slide,
it's all the same.
It's all the same. Yeah, I mean, the ARPA funds that we have designated in the adopted budget are residing in the water fund right now.
Okay.
So
thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I guess just my final comment on this is that when we talked about this at the last meeting where we brought up the process and moving forward, this is really going to go towards infrastructure that needs to be replaced in our existing neighborhoods. And so the people who are already here, who live in areas where we have undersized, deteriorating, you know, you showed those pipes with the corrosion in it. This is going to help fix that. And this is something that will really benefit the community. So I have supported this from the get-go because I thought this was a really good opportunity for the city to leverage funds. Even though we're borrowing, we have authority from the community to do that. So I would like to entertain a motion for this request.
I'll move to approve the request for approval to apply for the United States Environmental Protection Agency's WIFIA loan and authorize the expenditure of $100,000.
I'll second that.
Okay, and do we need to read the rest of it, Bill, or is that okay? Okay, all right.
Okay.
It has been moved and seconded. Mr. Wiley, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
and Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your
Thank you
hard
very
work,
much.
and hope we will be successful and we can get back to our community. You know, maybe we put a little, once we get the approval, we put a little article in the Trail News to say, hey, guess what, everybody? We're going to fix your stuff.
Yeah, there will be a lot of articles, and Patty's all over this issue. She's ready to actually build something, so
Oh, good, excellent, that's great. All right, well, as I said earlier, this was, you know, my second favorite, so my first favorite is actually tied for item 9C and 9D, but let's talk about the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, ARPA funding, another one of those initials.
Thank you, Mayor, evening commissioners. So tonight I'm presenting, we've done a couple of meetings to review the ARPA funding that we receive and how we'd like to allocate those funds moving forward. In the staff report, I outlined the expenditures that were already approved in the existing biennial budget. Those are items 1 through 4, water infrastructure, which we were just talking about, broadband feasibility study, tourism, and transportation. The balance of the remainder of the expenditures were then discussed by the commission, and I believe that we've captured what those projects are as well as their estimate on an expenditure associated with them. Including a downtown bathroom, additional funds for relocation of Father's Heart, community meeting space, essential employee pay, Oregon Main Street grant match for the courthouse, elevator security enhancements, downtown parking kiosks, library post-COVID reconfiguration, city match on federal dollars for the quiet zone, C800 implementation and construction additional costs, and then a small remainder for unanticipated future opportunities. In total, those 15 projects are a total $8,293,549. So with that, we are asking approval of that project list, or be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions? Mr. Morrow?
Thank you, Mayor. So at the last time this came to us during the work session, there was conversations about the community meeting spaces, item number 7. We had gone back and forth, and I can't remember what amount was there and what amount was being recommended for how many meeting spaces. So can you just refresh that for me?
Certainly, community meeting spaces, we originally were thinking of 2 locations at $100,000. We reduced it to 1 location for $50,000. And then we allocated that difference to the number 9 Oregon Main Street grant match for the courthouse. So that would be a match for a potential feasibility study that Downtown Oregon City Association would do for the reuse of the courthouse on Main Street.
So are we thinking that this would be City Hall or the Planning Department as was previously discussed?
I'm thinking probably, we've had discussions about the library. We have, existing space at the Pioneer Center. So I think we were thinking of up at Community Development Department might be more appropriate just based on location.
Okay, I understand because the one that was reallocated for the grant match is definitely a worthy cause, but I mean, as the representative on the CIC, this is something that I hear the most, is that neighborhood associations are frustrated that they don't have many options for meeting places now that we're coming out of the Zoom only world. And so that does concern me, but if we can be responsible about how we're scheduling and just try and make sure that we're utilizing the spaces we already have as well, then I can move forward with that. Thank you.
Any other comments? I guess I don't disagree with you, Commissioner Morrow. I understand very well the need for meeting space. However, we have an opportunity with the courthouse that I think we cannot pass by. It was part of the discussion I had with Commissioner Smith this afternoon about them partnering with us. There's obviously more discussions to be had, but they are at least open to us talking about this and possibly working on something that would be beneficial to both our community and to the county. So I understand what you're saying. I thought, Mr. Conkle, we had talked about City Hall being the first place because the way it's designed, the bathrooms are fairly accessible. We can easily close off. Everything is locked except for where our reception area is. That can be secured, and then that would be easy to allow people to use that room.
If the commission would like City Hall rather than CD,
Well, no, I'm just saying that was what you had suggested, so that's what was in my head, that we were going to look at City Hall as the first opportunity. I mean, the thing that I want the neighborhoods to understand is that we need to make sure that the spaces are secure and that they're safe, not only from the people that are inside the building, but for people who are coming out from outside the building to come into the building. And we have, city property there that we need to make sure is secured. So that is really, that's really, I think, the key to making these places more accessible.
To clarify, you were speaking about County Commissioner Smith?
Yes,
Sometimes
sorry.
you say
Yes,
Commissioner
sorry.
Smith or Chair Smith, and I get confused
yes.
myself. So
Yes.
I'm like, just clarify for the public.
Yes, no, I was not speaking with Commissioner Rocky Smith. I was speaking of Commission Chair Tootie Smith. So I apologize for that confusion. I forget we have multiple last names and some confusion. So I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's just sometimes I'm like, did we have that conversation? I don't know.
We did have that conversation. You just don't remember that conversation.
Willemjin.
All right.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the proposed list?
So moved.
Is there a second? can second it. I'll second the motion. So we're going with option 1. Mr. Wiley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
As I was on leave of absence when this is formulated, I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right.
Mayor, one real quick thing. I wasn't sure. We had discussed earlier, and I'm sorry that I missed this when we adopted the agenda, potentially a conversation under general business about climate-friendly communities rulemaking litigation.
It's 9E.
As a potential 9E.
Yes, I discussed this, mentioned it to those present that we were going to add that to the agenda. So,
Okay, sorry, I might have missed that. Thank you.
Nope, you weren't in the room, so you didn't hear me say that. I apologize. All right, so we're going to 9D, which is second reading of ordinance 22-1006, creating an Oregon Youth Advisory Commission. I don't know if there's much more to say, but Commissioner Morrow and I can report on the school board meeting that we both attended and some of the discussion that we had with the school district board. Do you want to go ahead and lead off on that?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Mayor McGriff and I attended the last school board meeting, and we spoke about this and emphasized the need for a partnership for this to be successful. And they were all broadly in agreement that this would be a great program for the students in our community. I'd say the biggest concern was that we were restricting it only to children that live in Oregon City, to which we brought up that, school district boundaries are different from city boundaries, and we had to make sure that we were recognizing that as it is a city program. And there were some questions here and there about ways that it could be changed. But in the end, there was an acknowledgement that hopefully at the end of its first year, there will be recommendations from the students themselves as to how it could be better, and that this is only a starting point, and that we're going to continually be improving and growing on this. And so they gave us the green light for another reading. So thank you.
Yeah, I would say that in addition to our discussion with them, one of the other things that was brought up is that they were concerned that we were excluding 8th graders and who would be freshmen the following year. And I said, no, that was not the intent, that we can reach out to graduating 8th graders who were going to be 9th graders, and they could apply. And since they would have time over the summer to do that, I did not see that as a problem. As Commissioner Morrow said, that, there was a concern, trying to think of who said it now, I was trying to remember everybody's name there on that school district board. Some of them I met for the first time, to be honest with you. Again, about the boundary, we have a lot of confusion because our zip code is larger than our city limits. Our school district is larger than our city limits. And if we're going to have a city-based program, we really need to have people who are residents of our areas in order to benefit from this. So we pushed back just a tiny bit. We didn't exclude any of the schools, so it would include homeschoolers, all of the schools within our district that have potential 8th graders moving into 9th grade and 9th grade on up. So,
and private school as well. They just have to live in Oregon City and be high school age.
Yeah. So is there a motion to approve the second reading?
I move to approve the second reading of ordinance 22-1006, creating the Oregon City Youth Advisory Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Wiley, would you call the roll?
Ordinance number, first
excuse me, Mr. Kvaisman, would you please read it?
Ordinance number 22-1006, an ordinance adopting the creation of the Youth Advisory Commission to Oregon City Municipal Code as Title 2.62.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you for all your efforts in this regard, Commissioner Morrow, and for being open for suggestions. All right, we have a new item 9E, and again, it involves, I don't know exactly what we want to, I just wrote down here the Springfield lawsuit, but at a recent meeting, we had a discussion regarding whether or not we would join in the lawsuit by the city of Springfield and other jurisdictions who have a concern about the requirements regarding climate-friendly communities, and it's much broader than what I'm saying. what we discussed generally in session was that we have concerns about the implementation of this particular requirement from the state. It's not that we disagree with the concept of having climate-friendly communities. What we have a concern about is the expenditure of resources and the lack of staff to complete this work. It is quite comprehensive. I have heard a number of explanations about it at the impact meetings, and it boggled my mind. I don't know how smaller cities like ourselves are going to be able to handle that particular type of workload. Now, they have said there might be funding available. That still, funding will help a great deal, but we still have a lack of resources, and that's my biggest concern, is that we are already overburdened with other things that we have to get done, including finishing our 2040. We've got the housing stuff. There's some new transportation rule that's coming down the pike that's scaring the Jesus out of me, not because of what it says, but because of the workload again. So we have basically decided that we would provide some funding to support this effort. But the question is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Conkle, is they've asked us whether or not we want to put our name down as members of the lawsuit. And I said, my comment was, well, we're kind of like a friend of the court. We're supporting them, but not necessarily wanting to go in all the way with our hip waders. Did I get that close?
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So that is correct. Why I brought this forward tonight is I am requesting from the City Commission authorization to contribute a maximum of $10,000. Originally in the Springfield IGA, it was a percentage of the general fund, and it was anywhere up to, I think, potentially $40,000. We felt that was too much to invest in this endeavor. But we do want to be supportive of addressing some of the rulemaking that has occurred. So what we've proposed is authorization to invest a maximum of $10,000. And then I am asking for commission authority and approval to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Springfield as an addendum to the existing agreements that they have with other contributing jurisdictions that lays out our willingness to be included as a litigant on the litigation, as well as the contribution of a maximum of $10,000. The additional resources spent on this would be potentially some city attorney time and potentially some staff time, either myself or the future communications coordinator to help with some of the coordination on the communications associated with this. But I don't expect that to be overly significant. I'd be happy to provide more details if you have any questions.
Let me just add one more thing before I call on Commissioner Morrow, is that we did sign on to a letter just as former Mayor Lyle Smith was leaving and I was taking her place on some of these committees, to say that we were asking the Department of Land Conservation and Development to basically delay implementation of this so that we could get more time to basically gather our resources. So we signed on with many other jurisdictions throughout the state to basically ask for the more time. Obviously, that maybe didn't happen, and now Springfield has decided to go to court. But I think there's still an opportunity for them to hear, the Department of Land Conservation and Development, for them to hear that we really do need more time. We're not trying to delay because we don't want to do it. We just can't do it. Commissioner Morrow.
Well, first of all, I'll say that it's not that I want to delay it. It's just that I just don't think that it's right for Oregon City. But I just had a clarifying question for Mr. Conkle because my Wi-Fi briefly cut out. So were you saying that it is now different? We do not have to do the original $40,000 initial investment. We can do the $10,000 that we had talked about in executive session and still add our names as a co-litigant?
That is correct. Once we reached out to the city of Springfield and indicated our willingness to contribute and be a party to the $10,000, as well as supporting in other ways, such as signing on to letters and whatnot. They reached back out and asked if we'd be willing to sign on to the litigation while capping our investment at $10,000. And the reason I didn't request this to be added to the agenda tonight is that we need to know by Friday. So this is coming very, very quickly as the last day for when that our ability to be a part of that litigation would occur.
Thank you. It's interesting because here at the LOC conference, DLCD does have a table at the where the vendors are, and I did stop by, and they had a whole exhibit on the CFEC policy, and there was a substantial amount of local electeds there giving their opinions on this matter. And then when I went up, they referred me to if I had further questions after I was talking with the guy there, he referred me to our regional representative from DLCD, Ms. Kelly Reed. And I said, well, that should be an easy one. So, but I fully support this, and being added as a litigant would be great. It's something that I wanted to do, but I was concerned about that initial price tag. So being able to get both for a lower price tag for us is something that would be great. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Do I understand that even as signing on as a litigant, our maximum financial exposure remains at $10,000?
That's
okay.
it. Yeah.
Plus some staff time, but that's internal staff time.
Yeah. We'll probably have to write some letters. Is there a motion?
And I guess as part of that motion, I do request that I have the authority to sign the IGA once we get it. It's an addendum to the existing.
So I think we're talking about something to the effect of that move to approve a maximum amount of $10,000 towards the spring, whatever we're calling the name of the lawsuit, and that we authorize the city manager to sign the intergovernmental agreement.
That'd be great, yes, for the climate-friendly communities rulemaking litigation.
Okay, climate-friendly communities litigation. Okay.
I'll second. Commissioner Morrow made the motion.
Yes. Now, I will say this while we're still in the motion in the second, that I had a constituent reach out to me asking us not to do this, and I very carefully explained why we were doing it. Again, it has to do with time, money, and staff. I think that DLCD would be responsive if they delayed implementation of this to give us all in the state an opportunity to lay this out, to figure out how we can get it done without feeling like we're being pressed up against the wall. And, you know, more than anybody here, probably I support statewide land use planning, but I support it in a reasonable way and one that basically doesn't bankrupt us financially and staff-wise. I mean, we need to, make sure we take care of our staff, and I just can't imagine this dumping this on top of everything else they've got going. So on the motion.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I wanted to add just one little thing before we get into, it's kind of a correction. So on those appointments, will you make sure that the minutes say that we made the appointments with the concurrence of the commission? That's very important to me. All right, communications. Other than what you just brought up, Mr. Conkle, do you have anything?
No, I do not tonight. Thank you.
Okay, well, I did want to have one thing, but commissioners, go right ahead. I have one thing under the mayor. Nothing. So, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. I wanted to get some clarity. First of all, I want to thank my colleagues for passing the second reading of the Youth Advisory Commission ordinance. And I just wanted to hear what the next steps are in terms of applications and when we can get out into the school and start publicizing this.
I would like to suggest that we put that back in the lap of our staff and come back to us with a little bit of an outline with some bullet points on the process that we're going to go through. I don't think we're really able to, I don't know, are you prepared to talk about that tonight? I think we should, that we have time, we have a little bit of time, and we want to get going with the school district and talk to them about about how we get this into their system. I know the thing, Mr. Morrow and I talked about going to talk to student council, so I've got to follow up with Superintendent Streckler about going and talking to their, is that what they call it? Student council?
Student council.
Student council.
Government.
So is that okay, Mr. Conkle?
Yes, I had shared our existing application that we use for all of our boards and committees with Commissioner Morrow. He sent me back some comments related to probably some additional information that we would want. So really it's incorporating those changes into a new form, online form that then we can utilize to distribute to interested student representatives. So I can get back to you with a timeline once I have a chance to talk with IT and incorporate those changes.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow.
Yes, thank you.
What I wanted to do under communications is that over here on the table, I'm walking over to this. So as many of you know, we had a fantastic celebration on the 1st of October. And I want to really thank oh yes, I'm not on the camera. I want to thank Tony, and I want to thank Lisa, who's already left for the day, and all of the staff, Angelique and Jacob and everybody, Public Works, State of Oregon, ODOT, everybody who contributed to this fantastic birthday party. I have received nothing but overwhelming, like, wow, that was amazing. It was over the top. Everybody had a great time. I don't know who picked the music. Did Ray pick the music, Tony? The acts? Or was she had help doing that? Because those people were amazing.
Yes.
So, as you know, one of the things that was on the agenda was a gift exchange, and I apologize for not taking pictures of the gift that the City of West Lynn and the City of Oregon City gave. I worked with Danielle Choi from the City of West Lynn on those gifts. So one of the things we gave them was a beautiful photograph of Mount Hood from the west, which is part of their ceded lands, which basically had a floating thing of clouds. The mountain was beautifully displayed. I mean, I have a picture of it, but it's on the card from the artist. It's fantastic. And then the other thing we gave them was a framed print from 1841 showing fishing on the Willamette at the falls. 2 fishing platforms with this person's depiction of the native peoples who were there. And I hope they really liked them, but I also wanted to thank the Grand Ronde. So we got a lovely gift from them, both the cities did. They received a carving of the coyote, which is one of their trickster characters in their mythology and their stories, and we received the meadowlark, and I'm gonna try to go over there and get it, because our camera doesn't go over there, right?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Anyway, so the thing that's cool about it, so we've got staff bringing it over. So the western meadowlark is the state of Oregon state bird, which, of course, why do I know that? Because I do. It is just absolutely fantastic, and it's just thrilling to see this. And I'm hoping that, I hate to say this, but Diane and I picked out a great spot for it in City Hall that will be lit, and the public will have easy access to come in and see it. And this thing is just absolutely amazing. It's just beautiful. And I've already sent a thank you note to the Grand Ronde on behalf of the city. But, if anybody else wants to send a thank you note, this is just absolutely amazing. And anyway, I'm speechless. It's just incredible. So that's what I wanted to do for my communications today, to say this. And this is just incredible. So anyway, that's our gift from them. Thank you, guys. Any other business? I also want to thank my fellow MCs, Mayor Jules Walters and Dan Gehring, who stepped in, and he's got a perfect announcer voice, and Rocky and Adam also helped out. And we still will have some swag to sell, so if you're listening, if you want one of those amazing t-shirts, they are at City Hall, and they're $20. We have some glasses, and we have also some other freebie swag that you can have as well. So thank you to everybody on our staff. It was, like I said, amazing. I will add one little postscript. I had a lovely conversation with Ryan Weinsheimer, who's the Region 1 director, and he made mention, well, what do you think about having this more than just once every 100 years? And I thought,
Love it.
And I said, what do you mean, Brian? He says, well, don't you think this would make a great pedestrian bridge? And I go, nope. And the reason I said no is because the city of Oregon City and the city of Westland have not made a final decision about alternative locations for a future pedestrian bridge. But we were not considering that the arch bridge would be it at this point in time. So I said, I acted very innocent and very like, oh, what do you mean, Ryan? And I knew exactly what he meant. So I thought I would let you know that that conversation took place. Is there any further business, gentlemen? All right, being that there is no further business, thank you, staff, for coming. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, all staff. Thank you. We are adjourned.